Welcome to Frequency Matters, the RF and Microwave Update. I'm Pat Hindle, and I'm here with my co-host, Gary Lerude. In this episode, we're going to talk about the November supplement, which is about 5G and IoT, two of the hottest topics in our industry.
Yes.
We developed this last year, and we have some great content this year, starting with the cover story. It's written by authors from Infineon, who worked with Google's Advanced Technology and Projects Group to develop gesture-controlled sensors. So this is a 60 gigahertz radar that controls a device through gestures. So now watches with small screens and wearables with no screen at all can be controlled. This is meant to be the future of interface, I think.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating.
And you see a lot of it online. This is Google's Project Soli, which you see a lot of videos on.
Yeah.
What else did we have for technical features?
So we have 4 technical features, 2 on 5G, 2 on IoT. The first 5G feature is from Keysight, where they're talking about, as you well know, with the 5G architectures of active arrays and MIMO, you can no longer just connect a cable to test the system. So it has to be over-the-air testing. So Keysight gives a good overview of that. And then our second feature, and Ritsu kind of builds on that, talking about the advantages of near-field measurements for antennas. Then on the IoT side, we have one from Rohde and Schwartz that talks about the new IoT standards that are emerging for LTE, so narrowband IoT, and eMTC, which is enhanced machine-type communications. And both of those will use LTE as systems migrate from GSM. And then our last one is about a different technology called LoRa for long range. That's written by IMST. And they talk about this system, which operates in the ISM band and typically has a range of maybe 15 kilometers. It's normally used for data communication, but they talk about how you can also use it for geolocation to know where these data sources are.
Very interesting.
So those are our technical features for the supplement.
There's also a special report from James Kimmery of National Instruments, and he talks about the opening up of the millimeter wave spectrum for 5G applications.
Right.
And he determines what frequencies are becoming popular. So he determined 28, 39, and 73 gigahertz are kind of what the industry is coalescing around currently. That's a question we get all the time,
right.
You know, what frequencies are going to be used. So that's a very good piece.
And that comes from kind of some of the work the FCC did this summer, I think, in terms of some of the bands they allocated.
Right. And also Professor Rappaport from NYU Wireless,
Right.
he's done a lot of research at 73 and I think even 28. So a lot of the channel modeling is things that he's done in his work at NYU Wireless. And we actually are offering now a 5G millimeter wave communications course. So you can go to microwavejournal.com/5G course to find out more information about that course. 2-day online video, you can do it at your own pace, and it also includes his ebook. So there's a lot of information there that you can absorb.
Yeah, great course.
In turning to the news, I saw that DARPA gave an extension to BAE Systems of more than $13 million to continue their work on their adaptive radar countermeasure system. And their aim is to develop an airborne EW system that actually can detect and analyze signals, synthesize a response, and then measure the effectiveness of that response. Currently, the systems just have a library which they can look at, so they can't really address unknown or new threats, and this system would alleviate that problem. So
that's pretty
very
cool.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah.
How about you in the news?
Well, last time we talked about Apple's results, and since then we've heard from Corvo and Skyworks, both beneficiaries of the iPhone 7. Corvo responded or released their results. They did $865 million in revenue in the quarter. That was a growth of 24% over the last quarter and 22% over the same quarter a year ago. So very strong. Their gross margin suffered, though, because they had some yield problems with a PA duplexer, a temperature-compensated saw that goes into that. So they basically built a bunch of material that they had to scrap, so that hurt their yields. The mobile segment did basically 82% of the revenue contributed for the quarter. The infrastructure and defense product segment did the remainder, obviously, at about $158 million. They were up 4% quarter over quarter and 18% year over year. I think one of the highlights from that piece of the business is they released 49 new products in the quarter.
Wow.
Then on the Skyworks side, they did $835 million in the quarter. That was up 11% from the prior quarter, actually down about 5% from the quarter of a year ago. They had strong margins, no execution issues, so they keep to be humming along as they normally do. The one thing I thought was interesting in comparing the two is for the first time, Corvo's revenue this quarter beat Skyworks. So
Wow, that's a
we'll
big
see how
achievement.
long that lasts, but I'm sure the Corvo folks are feeling pretty good about that.
Yeah, I always kind of see them going back and forth in
Right.
the leadership position there.
Right.
With all the talk of 5G, we thought we'd invite the CTO from Analog Devices, Dr. Thomas Cameron, to come on our show and talk about 5G. So here's a clip from that interview that we did with him. So what are some of the main challenges you're facing right now with 5G, with the rollouts and trials that are going on from a component supplier point of view?
So in our world, I like to divide it into two areas. One is the sub-6 gigahertz and one is millimeter wave. So in sub-6 gigahertz, as I say, we're going to see much higher, as I just said, much higher layers of MIMO, and that pushes us towards further integration, lower power, and so we start to see almost, and as you've seen in some of our transceiver products, almost a whole radio on a chip.
Right, yeah.
And this radio on a chip form factor really is enabling these this move from, say, 4T 4R radios to 64T 64R radios. It's a big jump.
Yeah.
And you know, our technology really is at the base of that and enabling this form factor. So that's the sub-6 gigahertz. Now, if we consider the millimeter wave world, this is much wider bandwidth, and this move to millimeter wave at 28 gigahertz, 39 gigahertz, all the way up to 80 gigahertz. So there, this is pushing us, pushing our technology to move from what we would say would have been a more discrete gallium arsenide-based world into a silicon-based world to achieve these form factors. So in the millimeter wave space, we not only have the move towards much higher integration, but there's also the push for wider bandwidth, which really is pushing the envelope on our data converters to achieve this nominally 1 gigahertz bandwidth. So we look at that entire system because Analog Devices' position in this space, we as we say, we have our bits to microwave portfolio, and it actually enables us to help our customers design that whole system and optimize the lineup.
So you can watch the full interview with Thomas Cameron at the Microwave Journal website where you watch this video as well. That was a good discussion you
Yeah,
had.
excellent. It's always good to talk with him.
Yeah. Well, I guess before we wrap up, I'd like to give a little bit of recap. I was at Milcom last week,
Right.
and that was a good show. It was held in Baltimore as opposed to Tampa a year ago. I think about the same number of exhibitors and attendees. I didn't see a final attendee count, but I think the exhibitors were well over 130. Mike Hullman and I were there. We exhibited many of the exhibitors, certainly people that we work with and know, and I had a chance to attend a number of the papers. It was interesting. A lot of the theme was on how does the military adapt some of the commercial communications technologies to be able to use in military and tactical environments. So things like LTE and the licensed assisted access where
Right.
you use the 5 gigahertz spectrum. And then kind of a strong corollary to those papers was the issue that the military faces in adapting any of these technologies is none of them are set up to be jamming resistant. And that's what you're going to encounter in a tactical situation. So there were some, how do we use LTE but avoid the jamming issues?
Right.
So it was pretty interesting.
Great.
So anything else to report?
I think that wraps it up.
All right. Well, we want to thank you for watching this edition of Frequency Matters, and we want to thank our sponsor, Mini Circuits. As you know, they have many products that you can choose from, and you can find out about that selection at their website, minicircuits.com. Thanks again.